Why are some people fascinated by haunted houses? Do they actually want to see ghosts? In this episode, I'll share 2 stories about terrifying experiences during explorations of haunted properties. One is The White House, published on April 7, 2011, and the other is The Abandoned Staff Dormitory, posted on July 10, 2016. Both have been recognized as S-class horror masterpieces on a dedicated Japanese supernatural story website. Although both stories involve high school students exploring haunted buildings, their styles are quite different. The White House was posted on a professional horror story platform, tightly paced, gripping, and full of suspense. The Abandoned Dormitory, on the other hand, came from an everyday forum. The author simply narrated his personal experience without forced logic. Some things remain unexplained even to him. It's this sense of realism that makes it even creepier. The comment sections also reflect this difference. Under The White House, most reactions are like, "So well written, the plot is captivating," or "This is really scary." Comments under The Abandoned Dormitory are more like, too terrifying," along with many sharing similar experiences. Because of their distinct styles, I decided to feature both S-ranked stories in the same episode. You can compare which type affects you more. But a word of advice: hold your phone tight while reading. I was so scared last time that I held my phone far away from me, and it slipped and shattered. So I bought a second-hand iPhone 14, not expensive, just 2,300 yuan on Zhuanzhuan. It's over 3,000 cheaper than a new model, and since the latest upgrades aren't major, buying second-hand offers much better value. Plus, Zhuanzhuan has strict inspection procedures, making it more reliable than typical second-hand sources. Their laptops are pretty good too. Anyway, if you're buying second-hand, I recommend Zhuanzhuan. Now that the phone is ready, let's begin the first story in first-person narrative. The White House. In my old town, there was a house rumored to be haunted. It was a white 2-story building on the edge of town with a spacious yard, quite a large property. It had been built only about 2 years prior, and a family of 4 moved in, a middle-aged couple and their 2 daughters. The father seemed to be a university professor, the mother looked kind, and the 2 girls were around my age. But just over a month after they moved in, tragedy struck. The mother and older daughter were strangled by the father, who then hanged himself. The younger daughter reportedly witnessed the killing and hid, escaping her father. She was later taken in by distant relatives. The house was left abandoned, never demolished, standing there in an eerie silence. That was all I knew before going inside. As for why I entered, maybe it was youthful recklessness, or maybe just ignorance and fearlessness. During summer vacation of my first year in high school, my classmates Kazawa and Takei and I decided to explore the haunted house. We planned to take photos and show off when school started. Around 11 p.m., we sneaked out with flashlights, a camera, and some basic tools, riding our bikes to the White House. The place was remote. The White House stood alone, its white walls glaring under the night sky as if rejected by the whole town. We parked our bikes farther away and cautiously approached, circling the building first. The door was not only locked but also secured with an extra padlock. All the first-floor windows were boarded up tightly. The second-floor windows weren't boarded but covered with newspaper, so nothing was visible. After discussing, we decided to break in through a window and chose one in the back kitchen. It was high up, so we stacked wooden crates to reach it. Removing the boards was easier than expected. After taking them off, I peered inside with a flashlight. It was pitch black, but I could make out a cupboard and a table. Furniture and daily items seemed left exactly as they were. Kizawa carefully tapped the glass with a screwdriver to break a hole and reach the latch, but the glass shattered loudly. Then, everything returned to dead silence. We avoided the shards and climbed in one by one. I was the last to jump down, landing with a thud on the stainless steel counter. Kizawa and Takei were already scanning the kitchen with their flashlights, making sounds. Whether impressed or disappointed, I couldn't tell. I crouched on the countertop, looking around. The kitchen was tidy. Though dusty, it felt like it could be lived in with a little cleaning. Even the dishes in the cupboard looked clean enough to use. As I was about to take their photo, Takei suddenly said, "Hey, Kizawa, your hand." Kizawa's hand was dripping blood. He glanced at it and said, "Crap, must have been cut by the glass earlier. It's fine, not deep, doesn't hurt." He shook his hand and walked further inside. We followed. The living room was spacious and orderly, just dusty. A large clock in the corner had stopped, maybe not since the incident, but the whole house felt frozen, which saddened me. But because everything was so normal, we felt a little disappointed and relaxed. After a quick look, we opened the door to the hallway. It was pitch black. Shining our lights, we saw doors on both sides, one on the left, two on the right, and a staircase leading up and the main entrance at the end. Takei asked, "What now?" Kizawa said, "Let's go further." Once we stepped into a hallway, the atmosphere changed noticeably. The air felt heavy and oppressive, even the smell was different. No one spoke. I took a photo toward the entrance, and in the flash, I thought I saw something on the left door. With the flashlight, I found several paper charms attached. We were all stunned. Kizawa pointed nervously to the door with charms and said, "How about we check the doors on the right first?" We immediately agreed. The two doors on the right had no charms. The first was a changing room and bathroom. I took a photo, nothing unusual. The second was a toilet, also normal. Back in the hallway, Kizawa suggested checking the charm door. Takei hesitated but opened it. It was a study, a grand desk, masks and decorations on the walls, shelves filled with obscure books, and foreign artifacts. Distracted by these, we forgot our fear for a moment. Takei found something on a shelf, a small object wrapped in oiled paper with a label in katakana. He carefully unwrapped it, a flat, pottery-like dish, slightly concave in the center, surrounded by strange patterns. I had them hold it like a trophy and took a photo. As I pressed the shutter, I noticed Kizawa's bloody hand near the dish and warned, "Hey, don't get blood on it." Right then, a low rumbling sound echoed for about 10 seconds before stopping. Kizawa asked, "An earthquake?" Takei said, "Maybe we touched something and made the owner angry." He couldn't tell if he was joking or serious. He rewrapped the item and put it back. The study now felt uncomfortable, and we silently left. I took one more photo of the empty room. After this, only 2 shots remained on the film. We headed for the stairs. The hallway air was still heavy, but leaving the study eased our tension slightly. At the staircase, I asked Kizawa and Takei to stand side by side at the entrance for a photo. Through the viewfinder, they made funny faces. I said, "Great shot," but they weren't listening, they were staring behind me. I turned and saw the study door slowly opening. Under our 3 flashlights, it swung toward us and stopped, as if blocking something behind it. I kept my eyes on it while backing toward the main door, trying the handle. It didn't budge, locked from the outside. Kizawa looked at me questioningly. I said, trembling, "The door won't open." Then Takei gasped. We looked back and saw pale fingers gripping the doorframe, like a dead person's hand. We froze. Extreme fear made my legs shake. I was paralyzed, unable to make a sound, just staring at the hand. Then a shadow emerged, a head with black hair and a deathly pale woman's face, her eyes wide open and inhuman. Kizawa suddenly screamed, "It's..." and bolted upstairs. His scream broke the spell, and Takei and I followed desperately, flashlight beams swinging wildly. Upstairs, Kizawa pushed open a wooden door at the end of the hall. We rushed in and slammed the door shut, leaning against it, panting. My heart raced as I scanned the room. Newspaper covered the windows, but it was dimly visible. A desk by the window had small items scattered on it. There was a closet on the right and a bed on the left. The room had a cute, girly style that felt utterly out of place. We listened, silence. Just as we calmed slightly, a man's voice called out, "Hey!" It seemed to come from outside or downstairs. Takei whispered hoarsely, "Is someone here to save us?" Kizawa and I didn't answer. Another, "Hey!" sounded closer. Takei shouted, "We're in here! Help!" Kizawa and I stayed silent, suspecting it wasn't human. Takei kept yelling. I pressed my ear to the door, then a low voice right outside said, "Are you in there?" We nearly jumped back in panic. We stared at the door, but nothing happened. Kizawa kept muttering in fear, "We're caught, gotta escape." Takei sat slumped on the floor, shaking with his head down. Trying to stay calm, I suggested, "Let's jump from the window." Kizawa agreed, but then started rambling to himself, eyes unfocused. I shook him, but he didn't respond. Takei was still trembling. I gave up and tore the newspaper off the window. Seeing the streetlights outside, I almost cried with relief. As I ripped the last piece, I saw two reflections in the glass. I spun around. Kizawa and Takei were standing with their backs to me. I asked if they were okay, but they didn't turn. Kizawa said in a flat tone, "Jumping is too dangerous." Takei echoed, "Yeah, too dangerous." Kizawa said, "There's rope next door." "I'll get it." Takei said, "Yeah, I'll get it." They walked out without looking at me. A terrifying thought hit me. Were they even the same people? Should I run alone? But I couldn't abandon them. I heard them walking down the hall, opening and closing doors. Then, faint chatter and eerie giggles came through the wall, a sound I'd never heard from them. It made me decide to escape. The window latch was rusty. My shaking hands couldn't open it. The next room's door opened. Footsteps approached. I desperately punched the glass, but it didn't break. In a panic, I hid under the bed, holding my breath. The door opened. 2 pairs of shoes entered. They stood by the bed as if checking for me. A rope hung near their shoes. I almost relaxed and crawled out, but remembered their strange behavior and stayed put. They walked to the window and stopped. Then the window opened easily, something I couldn't do. Kizawa said, "Tie this." Takei replied, "Yeah, tie this." Their voices were still monotone. They moved to the desk and worked on something. Then they returned to the window. Their shoes disappeared from view, as if they'd climbed onto the sill. Kizawa said, "Tie it around your neck. Let's escape." Takei said, "Yeah, let's escape." The desk suddenly jerked toward the window, a leg lifting. A loud crash followed, like something hitting the wall, then a soft, repetitive thumping that faded into a creaking friction. I curled under the bed, trembling, not understanding. The creaking went on and on. Fear numbed me. I lost all sense of time. Later, I heard creaking outside the door approaching. It stopped in front of the room. I covered my mouth, afraid to make a sound. The door clicked open. Pale bare feet entered, a man's feet. They walked around the room and stopped by the bed. My breathing and heartbeat raced. I pressed my hand tighter over my mouth. The feet stood still for a while, then walked slowly to the door and vanished. The door closed. I knew I couldn't stay. Survival instinct made me move. I crawled out from under the bed. Before I could stand, I saw 3 ropes tied to the desk leg, one tied to a fist-sized rock on the desk, the other 2 stretched taut out the window. Their pull was so strong the desk was tilted, one leg caught on the windowsill. I didn't dare imagine what was on the other end. I had to escape. But the bare feet ruled out every option except the window. I mustered courage to untie the rock rope to use it to climb down. As I worked on the knot, I felt watched. I looked at the door, but nothing was there. Just as I turned back, I saw 2 half circles outside the window, Kazawa and Takei's heads, only the parts above their eyes, staring motionlessly at me. Their eyes held no humanity. I screamed and jumped back, hitting the door. With the impact, a voice outside called, "Hey!" and footsteps approached down the hall. My mind raced. The eyes outside, the voice, where could I go? In panic, I hid in the closet. I knew it was a mistake immediately. The door opened. Someone entered, walking around slowly. The footsteps circled the room, then headed to the door and left. I relaxed slightly, shifted, and the floorboard creaked. A man's voice outside said, "In here?" I grabbed the closet door as outside force pulled. I resisted with all my strength, but the pulling grew stronger. The door shook violently. Just as I was about to lose hold, I cried, "I'm not here! I'm not here!" The struggle felt endless. Suddenly, my hand slipped, the door flung open, blinding light poured in. Someone spoke, but I couldn't understand. My mind shattered. I kept screaming, "I'm not here! I'm not here!" Later, the police rescued me. At the station, I was questioned repeatedly. What happened, why we went, how the 2 died, what I was doing. I explained everything in detail. Initially, police suspected we were on drugs, but tests were negative. I was also suspected in the deaths, but evidence from the room and the ropes proved my account, clearing me. But my testimony was largely ignored. Apparently, no footprints except ours were found in the house. An older officer muttered as I signed the statement, "Hiding in the closet saved you again, huh?" In the end, Kazawa and Takei's deaths were ruled as sudden suicide of unknown cause. One more thing, the police took my camera and didn't return the film. During questioning, they asked if anyone else was nearby when I took photos of the study and entrance. I said no. The investigator looked puzzled but didn't press further. The label on the oil paper package was eventually translated as "Path to the Underworld" in an ethnic language, but I never learned more. That object might still be in the house. Since that incident, whenever I look out the window at night, I see 2 pairs of eyes staring back at me. Doctors and friends say it's psychological trauma that will fade, not to worry. But tonight the 2 heads outside said in flat voices, "We're waiting for you. Yeah, waiting for you." I don't know if it's real. Maybe going back there one day will make it clear. The White House ends here. Next begins the abandoned dormitory. This post was published on a Japanese underground forum on July 10th. 2016, also in first person. This happened when I was 17, during summer break of my second year in high school. My friend Akun and I decided to explore an abandoned staff dormitory nearby. The building stood alone outside town, probably deserted for over 10 years. I'd been there several times as a kid, and it was already abandoned then. Weeds and trees surrounded it, and there was a dried-up, cracked swimming pool nearby. But we only went during the day back then. My friends and I treated it as a secret base, often playing cards by the sealed main door. At most, we'd peek into the dark lobby through the door crack. Even on summer days, it felt cold inside. To the right of the lobby seemed to be a management office. Next to it, a wooden board hung on the wall with names written in brush ink, probably nameplates of past residents. Akun and I decided to explore it because he stayed over one night. After dinner, we played a horror game on my computer and started chatting about our old secret base. It felt spookier than the game. Memories flooded back, and we got so carried away we forgot the game. Akun loves horror, not just games. He planned to watch horror movies all night, so in excitement he suggested, "Let's just go inside that abandoned dormitory." I wasn't afraid of haunted places. I often played courage-testing games with classmates. But I'd already showered, and going to the outskirts seemed troublesome, so I refused. Akun kept pestering me until I reluctantly agreed. Afraid my parents would notice, we kept playing games until after 1 a.m. before sneaking out. We brought flip phones with cameras, flashlights, wallets, and I secretly took a pack of my dad's cigarettes. We set off for the dormitory with a sense of adventure. Though I'd been reluctant, the cool night air felt nice once we were out. Our rural town slept early. Everything was quiet, stars were bright, and insects chirped pleasantly. We smoked and walked slowly, telling silly dirty jokes. It felt relaxing. After about 20 minutes, as we neared the dormitory, houses grew sparse and weeds thicker. Our talk shifted from dirty jokes to spooky topics. Akun suddenly said, "Hey, do you know what that abandoned building used to be?" I said, "An employee dorm, right? Would a dorm have a swimming pool?" True, there was a pool-like structure beside the building. Akun continued, "My grandma said it wasn't a pool, it was a reservoir. The people in the building relied on it, but then they started showing poisoning symptoms and died one after another. An investigation found a woman's body infected with cholera or some virus sunk at the bottom. That's horrible. But just drinking dirty water wouldn't kill you, right?" Akun said seriously. "My grandma said that's why the dorm was sealed and abandoned." I was skeptical. I had never heard this before. Adults rarely mentioned the abandoned dorm. It felt like a ghost story Akun's grandma made up. But whether because he told it so convincingly, the dorm now felt even creepier, and I got goosebumps. The trees around the dorm were denser now, blocking starlight. But as my eyes adjusted, I could make out the building's gray outline and walls full of cracks. The front was the same dirty door we played by as kids. To the left was the reservoir, a half-meter concrete base surrounded by a fence and barbed wire. As a kid, I thought it was a pool, but now the tight enclosure suggested it really was a reservoir. Akun said, "Let's check the reservoir first," and walked over eagerly. His story had left me uneasy, and I followed weakly. We stepped onto the concrete platform and looked over the fence. The reservoir did look like a pool. The bottom was faded and cracked from sun exposure, with dried weeds that resembled woman's hair in the dark. It made me nauseous. Akun shone his flashlight around the bottom. "Nothing here. Let's go inside the building." As he pointed the light toward the dorm, he suddenly exclaimed, "What's that?" I jumped. What? What happened? Something moved in a second floor window just now. Are you sure you didn't imagine it? Akun's hands were shaking. Excitement or fear? I took his flashlight and shone it at the second floor. Rows of windows, most broken, revealed the hallway inside with wooden doors. Probably old resident rooms. I said, "There's nothing there." "Maybe it was just leaves." "No, I really saw movement." "Maybe someone else is here for a courage test?" I yelled toward the building. "Hello? Anyone there?" No response. Even the insects went silent. Dead quiet. After a pause, I said, "See? No one. Don't freak out and make me nervous too." Akun said, "I'm not nervous. Let's just go check inside." I hesitated. "It's all locked. Let's forget it." "It's fine, let's just look. Maybe a window is open." Reluctantly, I followed Akun to the building. The outdoor stairs were rusty, feeling unstable. We made it to the second floor platform. The safety exit door was locked. We went up to the third floor platform. The glass in the door was broken, and it seemed possible to climb through. Akun pulled, and the door opened. The lock was broken. He joked, "Hey, this might be a good spot for couples." I grew more uneasy. Shining my light on the broken glass, it seemed recently smashed. Akun said, "Stop looking at that, check inside." He pointed down a straight hallway. Windows on the right, 5 wooden doors on the left, 5 rooms. At the end, stairs led down inside. Akun said, "Why are you spacing out? I'll hold the flashlight. Let's check each room." I wanted to back out, but Akun already took the light and headed to the first room. The building smelled of rotten wood and mold, damp. The first room was clearly a dorm, simple layout, a large window ahead to a balcony, a wooden bed on the left, a huge built-in wardrobe on the right. No belongings, empty. All 5 rooms on the third floor were similar. Some wardrobes had mirrors, some beds had rotten mattresses. Nothing noteworthy. We prepared to go down to the second floor. Since Akun thought he'd seen movement there, we treaded softly, not speaking, tension hanging heavy. On the landing between third and second floor was a small toilet with a dirty mirror. When the flashlight swept over it, the reflection seemed blurry, as if many people were there. I didn't dare look and quickly followed Akun down. The second floor hallway was identical to the third. No signs of anyone. We checked each room. At the fourth room, I noticed something odd. The doorknob was different, oval-shaped with decorative patterns, not round like the others. I turned it, and the door creaked open. This room clearly had been used. A mattress on the bed with a sheet and blanket, all dirty and smelly, whether moldy or never washed. The wardrobe door was open, with wire hangers holding filthy, blackened t-shirts. Akun and I exchanged looks. He whispered, "Does someone live here?" I whispered back, "A homeless person?" Our town was small. We rarely saw homeless people, but maybe they stayed here. Then Akun found something. He pulled the wardrobe open wider. "Hey, there are lots of books in here." I looked deep inside. Old books were piled messily. The text and illustrations felt dated, not nostalgic but sinister, vaguely like pre-war occult stuff. I said, "Stop looking, it's disgusting." As soon as I spoke, a tapping sound came from the hallway, like footsteps. My spine chilled. My first thought was the homeless person was back. The taps were irregular, but each sounded closer. I realized someone was checking each room. I signaled Akun to hide in the wardrobe. Inside, it was dark, stinky, and moldy. We squeezed together, shaking. The sound stopped at our room, no footsteps, like wind-blown clothes drifting. Then muffled speech outside, repeating, "Yes, sir," unintelligibly. It lasted minutes before fading away. A click sounded from the next room. It felt like hours, though less than 10 minutes. After waiting longer to ensure silence, we slowly opened the wardrobe door. Nothing outside, nothing in the hallway, but we kept trembling. Akun's voice shook. "Oh, let's go back." I was too tense to speak, just nodded and followed him cautiously downstairs. Akun, probably also panicked, thought going down to the first floor exit was closer than returning through the third floor hallway. But the first floor was different, not individual rooms but a cafeteria-like space, empty and dim, with dripping sounds. The exit should be opposite. We crept forward when footsteps came from the stairway. My heart nearly stopped. Akun pushed me into the kitchen behind the cafeteria. We crouched against the wall, listening as the steps descended to the first floor, past us. Then a chair scraped. Someone sat at the management desk. We peeked out. A man in a guard uniform sat with his back to us, hands on the desk as if reading. A stack of books had appeared on the desk. Was he real? We froze, not daring to move. The man muttered indistinctly. Suddenly he shouted, "Begin!" and a loud alarm blared through the building. We screamed. The guards still sat there, shoulders shaking as if laughing. My legs gave way. Literally, I couldn't stand. Akun ran for the exit. I crawled, barely keeping up. Akun reached the door but couldn't open it. I urged him frantically. Akun, pale, struggled with the lock. The alarm kept blaring. I felt eyes on my back. Turning, I saw the guard staring at us. Or not staring. His mouth, eyes, nostrils were clogged with mud, his whole face smeared. I managed to stand but collapsed again at the sight. Akun got the door open. He glanced back, saw the thing, screamed, then pulled me out. Outside, the alarm stopped abruptly. The guard vanished. Everything seemed normal again. I was exhausted, couldn't even crawl. Akun could run but acted crazed, yelling until he tripped and fell hard. The alarm stopping and the guard's disappearance reduced my fear slightly. I struggled up and went to Akun. He'd gotten up. His forehead and knee were bleeding, but he ignored it. Seeing me, he yelled, "Run!" We sprinted desperately until we reached a town convenience store still open. We collapsed under the light, gasping. Later, Akun said, "Ow, it hurts." He was bleeding heavily, barely able to stand. I bought bandages, disinfectant, and 2 juices from the store. At the checkout, I glanced outside. A woman stood over Akun, looking down. My first thought, a kind woman checking on him? Lucky guy. After paying, I went out. "Where'd the woman go?" I asked Akun. He said, "Huh." I explained. Akun trembled and shouted, "What are you talking about? There was no woman." His reaction chilled me. I gave him the juice and tended his wounds. Akun was pale, shaking badly. After bandaging, I helped him up. He said hoarsely, "That woman in white you mentioned, she's the one who made me fall. I saw her as soon as we escaped. She wore a dirty white dress, her skin wrinkled like soap too long. Half her face was gone, eyes and mouth just black holes, she stared at me with them. I let go of you to avoid her, but she pushed me hard." As he spoke, sweat poured from his forehead. I felt cold sweat on my back too. I asked. Did something follow us back? That made Akun break down crying. I helped him home, saying, "It'll be okay after sleep." Back home, not knowing purification customs, we grabbed salt from the kitchen and sprinkled it everywhere, especially the door and windows. We left the light on all night, not sleeping or speaking, only Akun occasionally sobbing. Akun went home early next morning. I told him to tell adults or visit a temple for cleansing. He didn't reply. After that, he gradually distanced himself, avoiding me, maybe not wanting others to know about the ghost, or not wanting reminders. I didn't want to know. Because since that night, whenever I see guard uniforms or hear alarms, I can't stop shaking. That's the full post. This episode ends here. I'm Nkeming, see you next time.